The first lie wasn't spoken. It was lived. It was in the air we breathed in our tiny first office, mixed with the smell of cheap coffee and old pizza boxes. We thought it was the smell of ambition, of success just around the corner. But looking back, I know it was the smell of something beginning to rot. And on the night the rot finally broke through the surface, the air in my lungs turned to a million tiny, sharp pieces of glass. 3 years. For 1,095 days, that rotting lie kept me silent. I was a ghost trapped inside my own body, a prisoner in a cage made of quiet. You never really think about your voice. It's just there, like your hands or your feet. You use it to laugh with your friends, to cheer for your favorite team, to tell someone you love them. You don't know it's the most powerful part of you until it's gone. And mine wasn't just gone. It was stolen. It was ripped right out of my throat, leaving behind a permanent scream that echoed in my head, a scream that I could feel down to my toes, but that no one in the world could ever hear. My name is Eli Mercer, and I used to believe that friendship was magic. I truly did. I thought it was a kind of superpower, an invisible shield that could protect you from anything the world threw at you. The four of us, we had a bond forged in late-night study sessions, shared secrets whispered in the dark, and a crazy, shared dream that we were going to change the world together. But I learned a hard lesson about secrets. Some secrets aren't the good kind that make you closer. Some secrets are a poison. They seep into the cracks of a friendship and slowly, silently, rot it from the inside out. When something rots for long enough, it begins to stink. And when the stink gets bad enough, the first thing everyone does is scramble to find a shovel and bury the evidence. Only this time, I refuse to dig. I refuse to be the one to cover up the crime. It all started on the night I found out what my best friends, my family, were capable of. There was Ryan, with a smile so charming it could talk a cat down from a tree. He was our leader, the one who could walk into any room and make everyone believe in our dream. Then there was Callum, a quiet genius whose fingers could make a computer keyboard sing. He could build worlds out of lines of code. And then there was Mara, the smartest person I'd ever known. Her mind was like a chessboard, always thinking 10 moves ahead of everyone else. She was our strategist, our protector. And me? I was the visionary. The idea guy. The glue that held our crazy, brilliant group together. Ever since college, people had called us the Core Four. We were a team. We were inseparable. We started our own tech company from nothing, right in our dorm room. We called it Aura. Our dream was to create technology that could keep people safe. In the beginning, we lived on instant noodles and the excited energy of creating something new. We worked all day and all night. We even lied a little to the people who gave us money to start our company, telling them our ideas were further along than they were. But those felt like small, harmless lies. We told ourselves they were just part of the game, the price you had to pay to make a big dream come true. The night the dream turned into a nightmare started like any other. I'd gone back to our big, fancy new office late to pick up some work I'd forgotten. The city lights twinkled below our glass walls. The building was empty and quiet, with just the soft, steady hum of our servers breathing in the dark. As I walked down the main hall, I saw a thin line of light coming from under the conference room door. I heard voices inside. They were quiet, but they were sharp with panic. It was a sound that made the hairs on my arms stand up. I pushed the door open without knocking. The scene inside was like a painting of guilt. Ryan, who was always so calm and in control, was white as a sheet, his voice trembling as he spoke into his phone. Callum, our brilliant coder, had his back to me. His hands were pressed flat on our long, polished conference table, and his whole body was shaking. And Mara, our tough, fearless Mara, was curled into a ball in a chair in the corner. She was staring at her own feet, as if the answer to some horrible question was written on her shoes. She refused to look at me. But my eyes were pulled to the giant projector screen on the wall. It was playing a video, a loop of grainy security footage. The little clock in the corner of the screen told me it was from a few nights before, at a big charity party we had hosted. It was supposed to be our big night, a celebration of our success. The video showed a corner of the ballroom. There was a man in it, an important investor I recognized. He was swaying, obviously drunk. And then there was a woman. She was a young intern who had been helping at the party. I remembered her. She was bright and excited. But in the video, she wasn't bright and excited. Her body was limp, her head lolling to the side like a doll's. She was barely awake. And then I saw Callum. My friend. My brother. He walked into the frame, his face tight and serious. He didn't check on her. He didn't call for help. He grabbed her by her arms and dragged her limp body out of the view of the camera. He moved quickly, efficiently, like he was just taking out the trash. The video ended, and then started again. The man. The woman. And Callum, dragging her away into the darkness. Over and over again. The next morning, a small article appeared on a local news blog. It said a young woman had been found dead in her hotel room near the party. The police said it was a tragic overdose. A sad accident. The article mentioned our party, but only as the place she had been before she died. The video from the security camera, the real story, never appeared. It was buried. Erased. But I had seen it. I couldn't unsee it. The next day, I cornered them in that same conference room. The air was still thick with the memory of that horrible video. I told them we had no choice. We had to go to the police. We had to tell them what we knew. The woman couldn't speak for herself anymore, so we had to speak for her. Ryan looked at me, his eyes pleading. He launched into a speech about everything we would lose. The company. The jobs of our employees. The future we had worked so hard for. He tried to convince me that our silence was a small price to pay for the greater good our company could do. Mara was crying, her face a mess of tears and smudged makeup. She accused me of being selfish. She said I was going to destroy all of their lives over a mistake. A mistake? Dragging an unconscious woman out of a room wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I looked at my friends, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the people looking back at me. I didn't care about the company. I didn't care about the money or the fame. Some things are not meant to be protected. Some things are meant to be brought into the light, no matter how much it burns. That evening, my phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice was calm, friendly. He said they had been talking. He said I was right to be upset. He asked me to come over to his penthouse apartment so we could all talk, figure out a solution together. He said they wanted to make peace. A siren went off in my head. It felt wrong. But a tiny, stupid part of me, the part that still remembered us as 4 kids with a dream, wanted to believe him. It hoped that maybe I could still save them from the terrible path they were on. So I went. Ryan's apartment was on the top floor of the tallest building in the city. It was all glass and white furniture, and it felt like living in a cloud. The view was incredible, but that night, the sparkling city lights felt cold and distant. The tension in the apartment was so thick you could taste it. They gave me a glass of my favorite scotch. A peace offering, they said. I took it, my hand trembling just a little. I wanted so badly to believe that this was just a nightmare we could all wake up from. I took a sip. The taste was wrong. Instantly, I knew. Underneath the familiar smoky flavor of the scotch, there was something else. Something bitter and chemical, like the taste of a penny held under your tongue. It was sharp and ugly. As I pulled the glass away from my lips, I saw Ryan's eyes dart over to Mara for just a millisecond. It was a tiny, silent signal. It said, "It's done." And then the fire started. It began in my throat, a burning so intense it felt like I had swallowed hot coals. It spread down into my chest, a liquid fire dissolving me from the inside out. I gasped for air, but my throat was closing up. I dropped the glass, and it exploded on the polished marble floor. I clawed at my neck, making horrible, strangled, gagging sounds. I was trying to scream, trying to call for help, but all that came out was a wet, choking noise. My legs gave out, and I fell hard onto the floor. The last thing I saw before the world went black was their 3 faces looking down at me. They didn't look angry. They didn't look sad. They just looked calm. Their problem was being solved. As my vision faded, I saw the reflection of the beautiful city lights in their eyes. They looked like distant, cold stars. I woke up to a steady, rhythmic beeping. My world was white. White walls, white ceiling, white sheets. The air smelled sharp, like bleach. My throat felt like it had been scraped out with a rusty shovel and then set on fire. I tried to speak, to ask where I was, what had happened. I opened my mouth, pushed air from my lungs, and nothing. Not a sound. Not a whisper. Not even the feeling of a voice. Just a painful, empty silence. A doctor with kind, tired eyes came and explained it to me. He spoke slowly, as if I were a child. He said I had ingested a powerful industrial chemical. It had caused severe, permanent burns to my vocal cords. He handed me a whiteboard and a pen. His eyes were full of pity. "I'm so sorry," he said. "The damage is too severe. It's very unlikely you'll ever speak again." The police came. They asked me questions, and I had to scribble my answers on the whiteboard. They told me my friends had found me. Ryan, Callum, and Mara had told them a story. They said I must have been cleaning something and accidentally drank from the wrong bottle. A terrible, tragic accident. And because I couldn't speak to tell them the truth, the police believed the lie. Ryan visited me once in that white, silent room. He brought a large bouquet of white lilies. They were beautiful, but they were the kind of flowers you see at a funeral. Their sweet, heavy smell filled the room and made me feel sick. He stood at the foot of my bed, wearing an expensive suit and a fake, sad expression. "I'm so sorry, man," he said, his voice a low, smooth purr. "This is just awful. You really should have been more careful." His words weren't an apology. They were a threat. They were a final twist of the knife. "This is what happens when you don't listen. This is what happens when you try to cross us." He put the lilies on the table next to my bed and walked out. I never saw him, or any of them, again. The next 3 years were a special kind of torture. My life became a silent movie. I learned to live with the whiteboard, to have my entire existence, my thoughts, my feelings, my needs, reduced to messy black letters. I went to therapy with speech experts who would look at me with encouraging smiles while I failed, again and again, to make even the smallest sound. I had painful surgeries where doctors poked and prodded at my ruined throat, each one a new seed of hope that would wither and die. The frustration was a living thing inside me. It was a beast with claws that was constantly scratching at the inside of my chest, desperate to get out. I would be at the grocery store, wanting to ask where the bread was, and I would have to find someone and wave my stupid whiteboard at them. People would either look at me with pity, like I was a broken toy, or with fear, like I was some kind of freak. I was so alone. I was a ghost in my own life. But something happens when you live in silence. You learn to pay attention. When you can't talk, you learn to see and hear everything. The world slows down. You start to notice the little things. You notice the way a person's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes when they're telling a lie. You see the tiny bead of sweat on their forehead when they're nervous. I became a student of people, an expert in all the ways they hide the truth. And in that silence, I started to plan. While my former friends were on top of the world, I was in the shadows, reinventing myself. Their company, Aura, became one of the biggest tech companies on the planet. I saw their faces on magazine covers at the checkout stand. I saw them on TV giving speeches about integrity and making the world a better place. Every time I saw them smiling and lying to the world, the beast of rage inside me would roar, and my determination would get harder, colder, and sharper. I turned my frustration into fuel. I spent 18 hours a day on my computer. I had always been good with technology, but now I became obsessed. I learned to code like I had never coded before. I learned how to navigate the hidden corners of the internet, the places where secrets are bought and sold. I became a digital phantom, slipping through firewalls and digging through deleted files. And I found everything. I found emails between Ryan and his lawyers discussing how to manage the situation after the party. I found bank records showing a secret, six-figure payment to the family of the dead in turn, a payment to buy their silence. I found a string of other women who had been harassed or assaulted by that same investor, all of whom had been forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, legal documents that promised to ruin them if they ever spoke a word. I collected their sins. I gathered every piece of evidence, every hidden lie, every silenced victim. Each secret I uncovered was another stone, and I was slowly, patiently, building a weapon. After nearly 3 years of this quiet, vengeful life, I found a glimmer of hope. It came in the form of an article I read about a brilliant surgeon in Munich, Germany. He was a pioneer, performing a new, experimental surgery to rebuild vocal cords using grafted tissue and electrical stimulation. It was incredibly risky. It could fail and leave me worse off than before. But it was a chance. It was the only chance I had. The surgery was long and terrifying. But when I woke up, and after weeks of painful recovery, the doctor came to me and smiled. "Are you ready to try?" he asked. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I was so afraid of the silence. I took a breath. I thought of Ryan's smug face. I thought of the stolen voice. I focused all of my will, all of my rage, and all of my hope into that single moment. And I pushed. A sound came out of my mouth. It was not a word. It was a noise. A rough, scratchy, ugly sound, like stones grinding together. But it was a sound. I had made a sound. I cried for the first time in 3 years. I tried again. And again. And then, finally, a word came. My own name. It was barely a whisper, a shredded piece of a word. Eli. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. My voice would never be what it was. The doctor told me it would always be a low, gravelly rasp. It would be quiet. But it was mine. They hadn't destroyed me. I had survived. And now, it was my turn. On the flight home, I didn't want to kill them. That would be an escape, a quick end to their story. No, I wanted them to live. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, the world looking at you, knowing your deepest, darkest secret, and the crushing weight of that judgment. I wanted them to know the horror of being silenced, not by a chemical, but by the whole world turning its back on them. I set up my new life carefully. I found a small apartment in a part of the city where no one knew me. I bought professional-grade audio equipment, a sensitive microphone, a mixing board, and most importantly, a powerful computer program that could disguise my voice. When I spoke my broken, raspy words into the microphone, the software transformed them. Out of the speakers came a deep, smooth, confident voice. The voice of a man no one could ignore. I created a podcast. An anonymous, untraceable podcast. I called it The Silent Witness. For the first 12 episodes, I told other people's stories. I exposed corruption at other big tech companies. I interviewed whistleblowers whose lives had been ruined for telling the truth. I became a voice for the voiceless. The podcast was a massive, unexpected success. Millions of people listened every week. They trusted the silent witness. I had built my audience. I had earned their trust. I had set the stage. Then, on the 3rd anniversary of the night they took my voice, I recorded and released episode 13. The title was The Chemical Silence. I told my story. I changed the names and the dates and the specific location. I called the company Aura something else. But the truth was all there. Every last, ugly detail. The friendship, the dream, the crime on the video, the confrontation, the bitter taste of the poisoned drink, the agony of the hospital, the 3 long years of silence. Recording it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I had to stop multiple times, choking back the rage and the grief. But I finished it. I uploaded it. And then I waited for the world to react. The explosion was faster and louder than I could have ever imagined. The internet lit up. Armies of online detectives on forums like Reddit and Twitter immediately started trying to solve the puzzle. They were hungry for the truth. "This sounds like the Aura scandal," one person wrote. "Wait, remember that intern who died 3 years ago?" another posted. What if? The dots were connected with lightning speed. My anonymous story was linked to real people, a real company, and a real, unsolved death. It was no longer a podcast episode, it was a global news event. Aura, the billion-dollar empire built on a rotten foundation, collapsed in on itself like a sinkhole. The stock price went from hundreds of dollars a share to pennies in a single day. Their investors pulled out. Their board members all quit. Federal investigators swarmed their glass tower, carrying out boxes of evidence. Mara, always the survivor, vanished. News reports said she boarded a private plane to a country with no extradition treaty just hours before the police issued a warrant for her arrest. She was a ghost in the wind. Callum, the quiet man who dragged a body out of a room, was arrested at his suburban home. I watched it live on a news helicopter feed. He looked so small and pathetic as they put him in handcuffs, his genius mind no match for a simple pair of metal bracelets. And Ryan. Charismatic, confident Ryan. He tried to do what he did best, talk his way out of it. He went live on Instagram, his face blotchy and stained with tears. He sat in his magnificent penthouse, the city he thought he owned sparkling behind him, and he begged. He called it a witch hunt, a smear campaign by a jealous, anonymous coward. "Whoever you are, whatever you want, please," he sobbed into his phone's camera, his voice cracking with desperation. "Please, just stop." That was my cue. The moment my entire silent life had been building toward. My heart pounded in my chest, a wild drumbeat of fear and triumph. I found the number for the live call-in show he was using and I dialed. A producer answered, shocked that someone was calling. I told him I was a source with direct knowledge. He put me through. Suddenly, my voice, my real, broken, raspy voice, was broadcasting live to millions of people. It was quiet. It was ugly. But it was the sound of the truth. "Hello, Ryan," I rasped. On the screen of my laptop, I saw Ryan's face go slack. The blood drained from his cheeks. His eyes went wide with a dawning, soul-deep horror. He looked like he had just seen a ghost walk into the room. A terrible, silent moment passed. The entire world was watching, listening. He finally choked out a single word, a whisper of disbelief. "Eli?" I let myself smile. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a promise kept. The smile of a debt being paid in full. "You took my voice," I said, and the words scratched their way out of my throat, raw and real. "So I became your loudest nightmare." I ended the call. 2 days later, they found Ryan. He had used an expensive silk tie to hang himself from the chandelier in his beautiful apartment, the city lights glittering below, indifferent. The police searched for the host of The Silent Witness, but I was already a ghost again. I had built my digital fortress so carefully that I was untraceable. The podcast went dark. I posted one final message on the website for my listeners, my final words on the matter. Justice doesn't always need a jury. Sometimes, it just needs a microphone. Now, my life is quiet, but it's a different kind of quiet. It's a peaceful quiet. Every morning, I stand in front of my bathroom mirror, and I speak. I say my name. I listen to the rough, imperfect sound of my own voice, and it's a reminder. A reminder that silence isn't just an absence of sound. It can be a weapon. It can be a shield. It can be the place where you go to heal, and to plan. 6 months ago, a new tech company was born. It aims to do what Aura only pretended to do, to build things that genuinely help people, that make the world a safer, more honest place. It's my company. And this time, we are built on a foundation of solid rock, not lies. There are no secrets here. In the main lobby, carved in large letters into a wall of solid granite, are the words that every single person who works for me must live by. Truth speaks, even when the voice is gone. Reporters sometimes ask me about my past. They're fascinated by my story, by the freak accident that nearly cost me my voice. They always end their interviews with the same question: after everything you went through, how did you find your voice again? I always look them right in the eye. I let them hear the gravel and the rasp, the living proof of my story. And I smile. It's a real smile now, one that isn't filled with the poison of revenge. I never lost it, I say, and my quiet voice fills the room. They just didn't know where to listen.